As we enter back into our conversations around embracing exile, we come to a chapter on blessing Babylon. One of the things I love most about the theme of exile and recovering that theme is it gives us the ability to read some places in the scripture with some fresh eyes, in particular, to read the prophets who entered into the life of the people in the time of exile. Jeremiah is a unique one to me. Jeremiah wants us to lament and release a lot of things that we carried with us into exile, but Jeremiah also has a unique perspective on it. Jeremiah wants the people not to just dwell in exile and kind of hide out, wait for exile to pass, or get in a little holy huddle, move into some caves, hide out in the wilderness. Jeremiah does something really radical. He invites the people to bless Babylon, to work for Babylon's good, to find their welfare caught up in the welfare of Babylon, to be instruments of blessing even into the lives of Nebuchadnezzar and to the people who brought them into exile. So it's important for us to think about the role of work in our lives. Most of us, if not all of us, spend the majority of our time, if we're students at school, but if we're workers, living life on the job. And unfortunately, it feels like today we have a kind of, what we might call a kind of accommodationist view of work. It says, man, we just go to work in order to get a paycheck, and it doesn't really kind of matter what we do. The point is, we just want to have this so that we can get into the things that we really want to do. We can buy the stuff we want. We can enjoy the weekend. I think that's really unfortunate because we really are created to be co-creators with God. If we go all the way back to the creation story, when God created Adam and Eve, he invited them to fill the garden, to have dominion over the garden. In the chapter I share about a professor of mine who used to say, by the time Adam and Eve were done living in the garden and creating things, by the time they got kicked out of the garden, they had to rent a U-Haul to take all their stuff with them because they had formed and created. And so we are formed to be workers, to be co-laborers, to be co-creators. And there's something really beautiful about that. So one of the things I want us to wrestle with in this chapter is to get over the divide between our sacred lives, maybe our church life and our home life, and then our secular life, our work life. That's a really unfortunate divide. For as I say in the chapter, God is Lord over all creation. Every square inch of the creation belongs to him. And so as we go into our places of work, those are places of divine presence as well, places where we are able to use that giftedness in powerful ways. And so I think about a lot of the people in my life who've been so important, who may not have been pastors or youth ministers or sacred people, if you will, but people who in their work became blessings. I think often that I am a lot of who I am today because of a math teacher I had in 8th grade, who in a time when I was struggling academically saw something in me that I didn't see. And so I'll be eternally grateful, not only that Mr. Mackey taught me algebra, but that Mr. Mackey saw something in me that I didn't see at the time. There are folks in my life. One of my best friends is not only my realtor, but also my insurance agent. And I call him my minister of well-being and my minister of housing. My friend Scott helped me find the right house, and our family loves it. And he makes sure that our needs are taken care of in ways that are fair and helpful, in ways that allow me to not have to worry about the future of our lives. There's something beautiful and profound about that. I love about 3 mornings a week, I visit my minister of caffeine, Nick, my barista at Starbucks, who is such a blessing and a warm face and a great latte maker. There's something really profound about the ways in which God allows us to be instruments of his grace and peace. And I share with you that the term that we use for economy comes from a Greek term, actually, the term oikonomia, meaning household. That our lives are intertwined and connected, and the things that God has called us to make us part of a great household. And so some of what we need to do is we need to rediscover what it means to be part of a great household, connected to each other, the purpose, the significance, the meaningfulness of our work. that our lives at work are not just to make money, or they're not just opportunities for evangelism, even though they may be that. But there is a real reality to the blessing that our lives become as we live and thrive and work and be reflections of God's grace and mercy within Babylon as we bless Babylon. And so I'd love for you to think about that, to talk about that, to think about what is the significance of the work that God has given to you. What are ways that your work, this place where God has sent you and sends you each day, can become an instrument of blessing in the household of God? What does it mean for the church to be a place of blessing within the community? How do we think about being a blessing in the places where God has planted us as churches? One of my heroes in life is Father Greg Boyle. When I was ministering in Los Angeles, I got to meet Father Greg. When Father Boyle first became a priest, he was sent down to the Boyle Heights district in Los Angeles, which was at the time and still is one of the most gang-ridden places in the city. He began to have significant work there, especially among gangs. He created a company called Homeboy Bakery, in which he got rival gang members to learn how to bake bread together. And they became a major distributor of bread to many of the restaurants and even to UCLA. He started a restaurant called Home Girl Cafe, where many of the women who were part of gangs became waitresses. And that was always kind of interesting when you ate there. It was one of my favorite places to eat. But one of my favorite stories about Father Greg is the bishop decided to transfer him from one parish to another. And when he was moved out of Boyle Heights, the gang members in Boyle Heights rioted until the bishop sent Greg back. And I've often joked with congregations, I would love for us to be such a blessing to the community that we're in that if we decided to move, the city would riot until we came back. The neighborhood would be in upheaval until we came back because we were blessings to them. And so I'd love for you to think about, what does it mean for us to be people of blessing where God has planted us? And even though we may feel in exile, we are called to be salt and light there. We're called to be instruments of God's peace, instruments of God's hope, instruments of God's love. And so I would love for you to think about what that means for you individually, but what does that mean for you maybe even as a group? What does that mean for us as a church to bless Babylon in all the places he sends us?